and then Grishma. Okay. So based on this first, I won't go into the details, but it tells us majority of it happened during the first part of Sharad season. The second, if we combine assertion 1 and assertion 2, it tells us that the Tithi of Bhishma Nirvana cannot be any time before Falgun Shukla Dwadashi. How did I do that? Started with Margashirsha Shukla Nomi, added 92 days, the Tithis for 92 days, and if the earliest I can get is Falgun Shukla Dwadashi. And the third inference, if we combine 1 and 3, it leads to the conclusion that the actual war happened during the month of Margashirsha, and the Margashirsha fell during the first part of Sharad season. Okay, so I'm going to walk quickly through it, not to torture you with the mathematics of it, but you can trust me, and if you don't trust me, I would love you even more, because then you need to go deeper and tell me where I am wrong. So, assertion number 1, assertion number 2, when you combine that, I call it Epoch of Bhishma Nirvana, which is again the time of Mahabharata, no difference. And mathematically, again, accuracy of astronomy equations, accuracy of everything there, but it acts as a poison pill. Now I'll tell you what is a poison pill. This evidence is telling us, forget Arundhati for now, you remember 4500 to 11,000. It is saying Mahabharata war would not have happened any time before 8000 BC. It could not have happened any time after 3700 BC. If you try to negotiate with me and say, how about like 3699, I'll say, no. It is that solid. In fact, the real answer is 7000 BC to 4700 BC. But I took into account every possible error that can happen, and therefore the 1000-year plus minus additional years. If you combine this assertion 1 and assertion 3 from the last page, the timing of the Mahabharata war, it gives you even a tighter control limit. We are saying Mahabharata war could not happen even a year earlier than 7285 BC. Or any time year after 5125 BC. So again, go back to Tilak, Savarkar, their birth time and their when they passed away. We are getting these different limits. We can overlap them and figure out the central interval. In this case, actually, the central interval is given by assertion 1 plus assertion 3. Before 5125, after 7285, and of course, I told you, using additional 200 observation, it leads us to 5561 BC. So I'm just going to mark it there on this time axis. Quickly for Ramayana, and this will go fast because now we know what we did. Similar to Mahabharata, I take all the evidence, more than 500 observations, split them into two. What is this side? Similar to what? On the vernier caliper, getting your cricket ball right into the prongs, approximately right. The other one is getting it precisely accurate, fine-tune your ear. Okay? So the astronomy poison pills will come from here because they restrict you. Something cannot happen. And that's actually the basis of science. Every time you test something, it restricts you. When you look at Newton's law, it tells you if this is true, then something else cannot happen. Okay, it's the same thing. So what you see here is in Aranyakand, you have a reference. This is the time when Lakshman, Ram and Sita are in Panchavati, near Nasik. And it is the time of Hemanta Rutu. And Lakshman is describing the sky. And he says, Nivrutta Akasha Shayana Pushyanita Himarta. He's talking about the sun, if you read the before verses. The sun is setting during this Hemanta Rutu near the nakshatra Pushya. Now what's the big deal? In our times, if you go back or next year wait for October, November, December, and you see just as soon as the sun goes down and you try to note down the nakshatra, it will be Uttarashara or Mula. But in Ramayana times it was a Pushya. So again, what do you use? The precision of equinoxes, the logic of this. And what you will find, now remember Hemanta Rutu goes for 2 months, right? So we don't know exactly when during the Hemanta Rutu Lakshman said this, so we are going to get a range. So if we do that, the range that we come across where the sun would be near Nakshatra Pushya while setting on the western horizon, we get this range of from 11,500 BC to 17,500 BC. Everyone follows? I mean, some part you have to trust me that this is correct. I am not cheating you. Okay? The Yuddha Kanda, there is another reference, very beautiful. Brahma Rashi, this is now, when Hanuman came back to Kishkinda, and now everyone left for Lanka. Okay? And this is when again Lakshman is saying this. He says, Brahma Rashi Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshya Archishmanta Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshana. We saw how everyone makes a pradakshana around the Dhruva. So he's saying Brahma Rashi, he is actually at a right angles to all these Saptarshi. Okay, they are at right angles when they are going around like this. Brahma Rashi Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshya, Paramarshya, those rishis, 7 rishis, Archishmanta Prakashante, shining brightly, Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshana, around the Brahma Rashi. Brahma Rashi was a pole star. Now do you remember when Brahma Rashi was a pole star? Around 12,000 BC, 11,000 BC, 12,000 BC. Okay, we just did that when we tried to understand precession of equinoxes. We can exactly find out the year, 12,048 BC, plus minus 1,000 year, plus minus 2,000 year, and we got another time period. Again, we are getting these intervals, different intervals. I'm going to speed up fast. But essentially, based on that, then I tested additional 500 plus observations, one at a time, sometime in a group, and arrived at 12,209 BC. Now exactly how I did, it's in my book. It's also on my blog, like I have written more than 400 blog articles. Quickly, last part, and hopefully we get into questions. How to resolve between conflicting claims. Now I'm not the only one who is claiming that this is the year Mahabharata war happened or this is the year Ramayana war happened. And that's a good thing. We should be worried when there is only one person claiming one thing and nobody is even caring about it. Okay. So how can we resolve between this? This is my framework I use. Out of this scientific framework, if we just simply use the evidence on one axis and testability, objective testability on the other axis, quickly we get 4 quadrants. Either somebody uses say arbitrary or selective evidence on one side or all the relevant evidence. And testability, either your theory is such that it is testable or it is not testable. Quick word, when we say metaphysical, which means in atarkya, okay, there is no way for us to figure it out. Many people make a mistake. When it's metaphysical, we cannot test it scientifically. They say, therefore, it is wrong. That's not true. I'll pick one name. Again, I have a correspondence with him. Okay? Jayant Narayikar. Have you heard that name? And what he says, until you find a fuselage, of the Pushpak Viman, he cannot trust Ramayana. Okay? Now, I'm being recorded, so let me tell that again. That's nonsensical. Nonsensical is the word. And why is that? I'll tell you where does that fit here. For example, if somebody uses all the evidence but not interested in testing it, that is a preservation of tradition. Now imagine this. Many of our sages, many of our people, even when they found something contradictory, they preserved it. How nice. We should all thank them. Even when they could see a conflicting, contradictory statements, and there are statements in Mahabharata and also Ramayana, they preserved it. They say, I don't know better, but somebody wrote it, let me preserve it. Someone else, like Nilesh, may figure it out. Okay. That's the preservation of tradition. Good example is the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, the critical edition. They don't throw anything. They write a critical line, but anything that deviates, they put it down there for us to test. If someone uses all the relevant evidence and makes it such that it's testable, then I call it karmic assertions, you can call it fearless assertions, whatever the name you want to use. Okay? Krishna talks in Bhagavad Gita, he says, be fearless, but also be humble. Fearless in claiming what you want to claim, be humble in the sense that you can be totally wrong. So I can be totally wrong, and that's perfectly fine. Okay. Then the last column here, and this is where Jayant Narayikar comes in picture, tamasic skepticism. You are objecting, and that's perfectly fine. Actually, skepticism is very healthy. For science, it's a must. But you know what? You cannot be just raise some skeptical point and do nothing about it. You actually have to actively work on it to see if you can figure it out. And let me tell you, if you do that, any one of us can do that, which is what I did with Arundhati Vasishtha as a beginning. No one could explain it. So I would have quickly reached the conclusion, therefore it doesn't make sense, Mahabharata doesn't make sense, and so on. But when I worked on it, and if you can, by luck of course, Devam Chaiva Prapanchama, by luck if you succeed, you make a revolution. You jump from here to that other quadrant. Okay. And the last one, and we have a lot of company there, superficial and manipulative claims. Why superficial, why manipulative? It's manipulative because it appears scientific. because the little subjective or arbitrary evidence they are checking, they are testing it. That is true. But what is the problem with that approach? You have lots of data points, you close your eyes, draw a straight line. What will happen? More than likely the straight line will, few points will fall on that straight line. Yeah? But is that straight line explaining the behavior of all the data? Obviously not. Okay? So that's the problem there. If we take these more than 130 plus claims and try to split them into these quadrants, they fall something like this. 4, 6 claims here, 2 there, and majority, more than 95% fall into that superficial and manipulative bracket. Why superficial manipulative again? Because they use only selective evidence. Any idea how they might be using selective evidence? Naturally, they tend to pick that evidence which fits their ear of the Mahabharata or Ramayana. So what do we do? Okay, we have to call them for a discussion. Our whole Indian tradition of Vada, Savada, Vada, okay, but avoid the Jalka, avoid the Vitanda. Okay, that's not always easy. We can create a criteria, and this everything that I have written here is used for every scientific theory that we test. Is there a priori assumption? Or is the person sticking to one discipline of science initially to make the claim? Then you go at another discipline and see if it matches. Is the statement of the theory clear? Is all evidence being used? Is all evidence being tested? Is the theory consistent, and so on? Against this, the desired approach, obviously I created this chart, so I'm going to give myself a great score, right? Okay, so it looks all very nice. Against this, I picked a few researchers, and I'll tell you the criteria how I picked it. I picked it based on the fact that these researchers are still around. Why is that? Because they can look at this and they can criticize my judgment. They can critique me and we can have a discussion. So Narar HR claims 3067 BC, Professor Iyengar claims another date, Saroj Bala from Delhi claims something else, Ashok Bhatnagar ji, Mohan Gupta ji, Professor Mohan Gupta from Ujjain, and Vedavir Arya last one. There are many others. I just picked these. If I pick many, you will not able to read what I write here on the slide. Okay? These all are around. If you evaluate these claims, you can have these additional criteria. I'm going to go back through this. Is the theory been falsified? Of course, you don't want it to be falsified. Against this, how each of these theories, each of the claims, how does it come out? Scoring. I will just say one score and I'll stop. This last score here, you see the TS score. It's a term used in science called truth likeness or verisimilitude score. Truth likeness score. The quick analogy is like a tennis. Okay, Federer versus some other player, and best of 5. And so the scores that you hear is what? 6-1, 6-0, 6-2. Who do you? I'm Federer and somebody else. Who do you think is the winner? Federer, right? 6-1, 6-0, 6-2. But that doesn't mean the other person did not score against Federer. Of course he did. It's in the score, 6-1. So that person won the game. Many other points he might have scored. But still, based on the overall score, we are saying Federer is the winner. Similarly, we can look at all the astronomy evidence and see who is capable, successful in matching the maximum amount of evidence. Now, this is not just for Mahabharata guys. If you look at Newton's theory, the same thing. Newton couldn't explain the path of Mercury. They have to wait until Einstein and so on. Okay? Copernicus, same story. Galileo, same story. Copernicus and Kepler. Alright, Ramayana, I'll just skip that. I don't know how I'm doing on time if I've gone ahead, but I'll just skip it and let's get into question and answer. And then if you have time, I'll come back to this. So, this is time for if you have any questions or if you have any objections. Thank you. If you can raise the hand so that someone will bring the mic to you, the speaker to you, the mic to you. Do we have another one? Okay. How about this? Whoever wants to ask a question, come in the front. Can someone tell me how much time we have?
One microphone.
You can use that
Okay.
Original J had some 8,000 slopes. Now after, I think Krishna Deva and Vyas had the two disciplines, Shandilya discipline, and both the disciplines have written Mahabharata separately.
Yeah.
Now, your observation, your conclusion is based on which discipline?
Great question. Thank you. So tell me if my question is correct. That Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata, and then he distributed to his disciples, okay, his shishya, to spread it. And so there are multiple versions of it, not too many by the way. Okay, so one is a Vaishampayan. What is the other one you said?
Shandilya, I guess.
Not Shandilya,
I don't
Jaimini.
remember. Huh?
Jaimini.
Jaimini, yes.
In fact, there may be more, but all that is left with us that we can track is Vaishampayan and Jaimini.
Jaimini.
And the Jaimini version is a very short version, especially it focuses on the Ashwamedha.
Yes.
Okay, not much other. So as far as the very comprehensive version of Mahabharata is concerned, it is Vaishampayan. Okay, and so his question is, now you said 8,800 also?
Yeah, original Jai.
Yeah, okay, so this is also another question. He said, so first, did I answer that? So there are not many versions. First thing, there are only two. And the Jaimini is a very short version, mostly focusing on Ashwamedha. It doesn't talk about the war, at least it doesn't, we don't have it, whatever we have. So as far as Mahabharata is concerned, we have one version. Now it has multiple recensions. So for example, Vaishampayan said this at the Janmejaya Sarpasatra. That time others are listening. Okay, then Lomaharshan or something, he goes to Naimisharanya and he says that to sages. And again that is been recorded. So Vyasa told Vaishampayan. So we have at least four recensions. One person telling another, that person telling another, that person telling another, 4 times. But that is all there into whatever Mahabharata we have, around 125,000 verses. The second point he said is, but Jai, supposedly the original shorter version, has 8,800 verses. Okay? Again, great question, and you are representing others. Actually, that is a totally incorrect information. Okay? Again, you can go to my blog, so just type Google Nilesh, you'll see the blog, and type something like original